Radnor residents should know if a microcell operator comes into your neighborhood. Why the November 5th upcoming election is critically important to the future of Radnor Township. And what is the future of stormwater management in this township? There's been an awful lot of talk about it. And we're going to talk some more about it with 6th Ward Commissioner Jake Abel. Thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
This series of Commissioner's Corner is, I guess, a public service provided by Radnor Studio 21 to keep residents of Radnor Township informed and engaged in the issues that affect the quality of life for many residents in the township as well as businesses. Jake, you've been researching microcells and the problem of no or poor reception in parts of the township, particularly the 6th Ward.
Right.
And you have educated me a good bit on what's been going on because I would be affected by it. I live in a community that is at least under consideration for installation of microcells. I didn't realize it was so complex, but more importantly, I didn't realize until recently, if I understand correctly, that the operator, Crown Castle, I think the name, could come into my community without our permission and without the approval or permission of an individual resident if they determine, based on their assessments and surveys and so on, that a particular location in the community is the optimal location for a 40-foot tower with a microcell on it and a box hanging from it or appendage of some kind. I didn't realize that it's not eminent domain.
Right.
But I didn't realize that they have right of way to come into a community and do what they believe is in the best interest of whom?
Well, so in that scenario, they would be working with a carrier that determines they want to be in that location. So let's
a Verizon, a Comcast, an AT&T.
Well, I mean, in our area, it'd be Verizon, or Sprint.
Oh, okay.
Comcast.
Yes.
I don't think it's Comcast. I don't think Comcast is on any of them, but T-Mobile and AT&T. I don't know is on any of the microcells, but they would be one of the four big ones. But to answer your question, so since 2011, I believe it's 2011, Crown Castle's had a right-of-way agreement with the township. So they're just like any other public utility, Pico, Aqua. They have the right to work within the right-of-way. And all the microcells that they have in the township are within the right-of-way. We have 17 right now in the township. Not many people know about this. I seem to be...
There's 17 designated locations already?
There's currently 17 microcells already installed in the township.
Installed already?
Yeah, and operating.
Yes.
There's one in South Devon near my house. We weren't consulted. We weren't advised that this microcell was going up. It just shows up.
But in that case, I assume it was on the roadway. It was on at curbside someplace. It's not in your community.
It's not in the community, correct?
Yes.
But I mean, there's other locations. There's places in North Wayne, along North Wayne Avenue. It's in the right of way, but it's on a resident's property.
Yeah. But once again, am I correct in my understanding? I know there's been a great deal of talk about it, and there may be even some debate, and I know there's a lot of I shouldn't say a lot. There is some resistance to it at the township level, at the Board of Commissioners or the staff, because there are certain options. There are other ways to solve the problem, including a big ugly tower sitting someplace. These are at least less conspicuous, less obtrusive than some of the other options. Nonetheless, I didn't realize that in spite of the debate, in spite of what some people may want, they may not have the option. These folks can come in and say, based on their studies and so on, and under the law, the federal law, I assume, they can come in and in the interest of giving everybody better performance, particularly with 5G coming in, that this is the only way it's going to work. Therefore, a 40-foot pole is going to go there. Well, and I'm sorry if you don't like it, but that's where it's going.
Well, it'd be, I mean, from everything I've seen and heard, it'd be a 24-foot pole, more than likely.
Okay.
But you're right. So the way I understand the process is if a carrier X comes to Crown Castle, they would ask Crown Castle, can we put a network in this area? Neighborhood Y, for example.
Okay.
Crown Castle would come back and say, we have infrastructure, we can make this work. They would sign an agreement, and then by law, they would have to have that network up and running within 90 days. So what I've tried to do is present neighbors an option where they can drive the train. They're part of the process. There's no carrier right now coming in and saying we want to put it here, but I believe it's coming. That day will come eventually when everybody's using their network more.
Yes.
And our system's taxed.
Yeah.
There's already one microcell on a corner where there's no property.
At Newtown Road and
Newtown Road and
Darby Paley.
Darby Paley. So the carriers are aware of this area. So to me, it's only a matter of time. I'm just giving neighbors an option. If they don't like the option or they don't want it, I'm okay with that.
But this discussion should be at the board level, not just at the ward level, because it will eventually affect the entire town. It is affecting the entire town.
Well, the board's going to have to talk about accountability and just making sure we know what's going on in the township. But the board, we're not going to decide whether microcells can come here. They're already here.
Precisely, yeah. So rather than resist, let's talk about how we can manage the process.
Well, I still want to give neighbors in these communities a voice. And if they're not comfortable with it and they decide they don't want it, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But they just have to know that there's a possibility that they could get a network and not be part of it.
In the absence of dialogue, in the absence of some discussion, in the absence of discussing some of the options, communities could end up with a straight pole up in the air rather than some of the other optional designs, I understand, that could be available.
Right.
As the result of some discussion among reasonable people and trying to come up with something that will have some, be less aesthetically displeasing.
That is a possibility.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it won't happen unless there's some dialogue and some information shared with the people who have a right to know and a need to know.
Right, and I'll continue to have community meetings and neighborhood meetings and talk to the neighbors just so they understand the different options. But I'm going to leave it up to them to make that decision.
I understand. But as I said, what struck me was, here I thought that a community could say yes or no. The community cannot say yes or no. The community can say, let's talk,
right,
but no, cannot say, no, you can't come in here.
Correct.
No control over that.
And that's important.
And that's important.
That is important for
because I know
residents to know.
Some communities resisting it and saying no, maybe because they don't understand that they don't have the right to say no, at any rate.
Yep.
Another item is the importance of the November 5th election, upcoming November 5th election. Not so much from partisan standpoint, but there are some pretty important issues that the next board is going to face. Could you just tick off some of those issues? The critical issues.
Well, obviously, we're going to continue to talk about the budget.
Yes.
Our budget continues to grow. Revenue seems
largely because of entitlements.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think we're funding projects that we need to take a look at. Projects that are either outside the township or that may be duplicative of other projects going on. So I think we need to have I'm planning to have a real discussion on what our priorities should be and make it known that we can't fund everything.
Can you give me an example of duplicate projects or?
Well, I think in general, I think we do a lot of projects for senior citizens at the library, at the Wayne Senior Center. There's one company outside the township. It started here, but now it resides outside the township. Where can we? And then we also have churches that are willing to do volunteer work. So how can we pool all of those resources to do similar things instead of having 4 or 5 different entities providing a similar service?
I think you're right. Probably would be beneficial to step back and take a look at all the resources within the township and how they can be redeployed. But more importantly, the notion of partnership and collaboration to get more out of those resources.
And I know we have these organizations that are coming to us asking us, what can we do to help out? We need to take advantage of that and leverage those resources, which I don't think there's going to be a big dollar amount against it, but it could help residents in providing services.
I don't think there's a meeting that goes by that you don't say storm water management. What's the latest?
Well, I'll be having a town hall meeting on October 30th to talk about the West Wayne Preserve. And this is an area, this is township-owned property, which is why I gravitated toward this project, where we would use that property, regrade it to hold the water. We'd also be looking at using the park behind there, the Friends of Radnor Trail Park, which is mainly a dog park. But it's a nice area. We would use that as another retention area. So I think this is a great project. This meeting on the 30th is also unique because it's going to be bipartisan.
Where will it be held?
It's going to be held at the Township Building at 7 p.m. But I've invited Commissioner Jack Larkin to join because his residents are just on the other side of Conestoga Road, and they're impacted by not only the stormwater, but the tap trail, the bike trail that's going to be connected across. So it's going to be unique. I don't know that we've done in the township a bipartisan town hall meeting in the past, but I'm looking forward to it, and I'm glad Commissioner Larkin is going to join.
Well, it's a good example of bipartisan cooperation. Yeah. What else keeps you awake at night as you try to do your job, take care of your kids and family and so on? But when it comes to your responsibilities as a commissioner, what else keeps you awake at night?
Well, we talked about at the last meeting 2020 priorities, and the township manager and the director, assistant township manager asked what our priorities are for the next year. And I took time to think about it, spoke with neighbors afterwards, and we came up with some projects that I'll be talking about on Monday night. Public safety. We're trying to get more people, and particularly children, walking. I think we need to have a better system in place and identify areas where we want residents crossing roads. And our current crosswalks, I don't think, meet those standards. So I'd like to have a discussion about crosswalks. And there's two I've identified in the 6th Ward, one on Conestoga and South Devon, where I know the residents along Conestoga cross, and that gets them into downtown Wayne. So, and that's an area where I don't want just a normal crosswalk, but we need to have some sort of electronic system where they can push a button, it lights up, notifies vehicles that someone's crossing. That's where I want to go to on major streets, that electronic system.
You mentioned the fire department previously.
The fire department will continue to be a priority. I think we need to find a way to fund the fire department so they know exactly what they're going to get on an annual basis. We also know that they're having a harder time attracting volunteers. So I want to continue to look at ways that we can get volunteers. In the last meeting, I proposed a partnership where Villanova was willing to come to the table and talk about a partnership where if they put up $2,500, we put up $2,500. If they put up $5,000, we put up $5,000. And form a scholarship for a student to come into one of our fire departments and serve for a year. That received more opposition than I was expecting.
Why?
The two reasons given were that a student wouldn't take a one-time scholarship for $10,000, which I personally...
How can they sit there and make that judgment?
I don't know. I mean, I accepted 4 one-time scholarships when I was going to school. I think a $10,000 scholarship is pretty attractive to a student. And the other reason was one commissioner said that they wouldn't want a student who doesn't live here and won't stay here to volunteer for our service. And my response to that was, are you checking IDs? If you have a fire at your house, do you care where they're from?
Right.
I mean, you just want people showing up to put out the fire.
Had you proposed it to Villanova?
So I've been in discussions.
Preliminary?
I've been in discussions with Villanova for the better part of the last 4 months, trying to figure out how we can get something in place. And they finally came back and said, we're willing to come to the table and have a discussion.
They don't have their own fire department at Villanova University, or do they?
No, I know they have their own. They have an EMT, and they have an EMT service.
So they rely on the township in the event of a fire.
Well, they rely on a couple different townships.
Yes.
Radnor Township, Lower Marion.
I assume they make a contribution to those fire departments.
That I don't know what their contributions are.
They certainly should. Yeah.
But this is a way where, it's a win-win. It's a win for the university because one of their students would be supporting. It's a win for the township because we're getting volunteers.
The ideas that you're coming up with would suggest that the board should find some time to, and I think they did this earlier, to go off-site someplace and just brainstorm and first take an inventory of all the resources in the township, many of which are not known to most people. You mentioned seniors, for example. We've got an aging population. We have a few centers for them. We have some of the tried and true traditional things that have been done. But there's so much going on in the mature market, if only because of technology, assistive technology that's available today. Why wouldn't the board go off and do some dreaming about what could be done? We've got a marvelous collection of assets in this township, not just government. that could be put to use, particularly if they're able to come together in
And
collaboration.
We've tried a couple different options, and to get into your point, we've had these special meetings every month for the year.
Yeah.
I don't know how beneficial they've become. It turns out to be just a whole laundry list of items that look good to fund.
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, we just can't do all that. Otherwise, we're going to have to see taxes raised considerably. We've also tried to hold executive session meetings where we brainstorm. On paper, it sounds good, but it's only good if people are coming to discuss.
Yes.
And more times than not, they kind of end up in a partisan battle where people are grandstanding, and it turns out not to be productive. So the idea is good. But
it's not only good, I think it's absolutely necessary, because you're wasting opportunities, forfeiting opportunities, because there's just not enough information.
But it's only beneficial if the 7 elected officials come and are willing to work.
Yeah. Well, couldn't you do it in your own ward?
Well, I think
Pull together the resources, and I know you do it, but pull together the resources and talk about what we could do if we work more closely together.
Yeah, and I think that's what I try to do with all these town hall meetings, is talk about, because we may be talking about stormwater, but I'm open if a neighbor has an issue, any issue, bring it up. It's an opportunity to talk. So anytime I can get neighbors together, that's the intent.
As always, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
This has been another episode of Commissioner's Corner with 6th Ward Commissioner Jake Abel. If folks want to contact you, how do they do that?
They should go to the Radnor Township website, go to Board of Commissioners, and I have my link there.
Perfect. Until next time, this is Commissioner's Corner. I'm Rick Anthony. Take very good care of yourselves.